Hi, my name is Henry. I'm the Senior Immigration Counsel at Manifest Law. And in this video, I just want to show you quickly how to find the filing fees for your I-129 petition. So the filing fees are all now found in the USCIS fee schedule that they've tagged with form number G-1055. If we go on the website, you have to go through all this material here and you have to look for the form that you want to file. So if you were looking at filing an I-129, for example, for an O-1 visa, then you see there's a lot of different options here. So I'll go through a few of these, but it's kind of complicated in the sense that there are many different visa categories that are requested with an I-129, and they all have different fee structures, and the fee structures within the same category also differ a lot depending on who is filing it. So if we just go under the general I-129, for example, then you will see here a lot of different things that you have to look at. Number one, for example, if you're filing for an E1, E2, E3, or TN petition, then you have two possible base filing fees at a minimum that you're going to have to pay one or the other. So 510 is for small employers or nonprofits, and a small employer is somebody that has 25 or fewer full-time equivalent employees in the United States. Full-time equivalent just means that you could have 30 part-time employees, but that doesn't mean that you have to pay the big employer fee. You might still qualify as a small employer depending on what is the workload of those part-time employees. So if it's 30 employees all working 0.5 or half the workload of a full-time employee, then you basically have 15 full-time equivalent employees. And the way to prove that or show that would be something like 941. That's the tax form that shows your quarterly payroll records. Then if it's an employer that has more than 25, then they have to pay this much. So that's your starting point here. And you see it's similar for all these other filings, just the numbers are a little bit different. So if you're filing for an O, the small employer or nonprofit pays 530 instead of 510, and then the larger employer is 1055 instead of 1015. In addition to this baseline filing fee, you also always have to look at the asylum program fee. The asylum program fee is a fee that USCIS is now charging on all kinds of business immigration cases, whether that's for temporary work visas or whether that's for the EB1 or EB2 immigrant petitions or green card category petitions. And it's to fund the asylum office where they process asylum applications from people who are seeking asylum in the United States. So many people are confused. They say, I'm not applying for asylum. It's like, you might not be fine, but that's just what they call the fee. So if you are, again, a small employer, then you pay 300. So if it's a small employer that pays the 510, then your baseline filing is actually 810. If it's a large employer and they pay 1055, let's say for the O, then the baseline is actually 1655. And then on top of that, if you want to do premium processing, there will be an additional 2,805, which is not showing here, but it's in the I-907 is the form number. Okay. And then let's look at some other ones that are very common. Let's say, for example, the H-1B. Now, H-1B is extra complicated because there's more additional fees for H-1B filing. One complicating factor is that you can now file H-1B petitions online if the company has the My USCIS online account. The online filing is a little bit cheaper, and I actually prefer it because you get a receipt notice the same day you file. So there's a benefit of that. Same thing with the other ones. There is the small employer or nonprofit that gets a lower fee. And if you have more than 25 full-time equivalent, then you have to pay the higher fee. In addition, you have the same thing, the asylum program fee, depending on the size of the employer. Then there is the fraud prevention and detection fee, which is applied to all H-1B petitions that are first-time filings, initial approval. So whether that's an initial approval of the person's first time ever H-1B, or whether it's an employer filing for a change of employment. So if your employer or if your new sponsor is doing a transfer petition to poach you from a different company and have you come working for them, then it also is subject to the $500 fee. In addition to that, there is the public law fee that is subject for some companies, but it's basically for larger companies that are H-1B dependent, meaning that if it's a big company with 50 or more people in the US and more than 50% of those employees are on H or L visas, then they have to pay this extra fee. Most people or most companies don't have to pay this, but this is to basically get certain consulting companies and contractor businesses to pay more. In addition, there's the American Competitiveness and Workforce Improvement Act fee, and this is depending on the number of workers and depending on the kind of application. And for this one, you have to actually look at the data collection form before you know whether you have to pay this or not. So for example, there's a bunch of yes or no questions on that data collection form, and if you answer yes to some of those, then you might not have to pay the fee. So it's off the top of my head, it's hard to say exactly whether you're subject to this one or actually zero. For example, if it's a university or a nonprofit, then they usually don't have to pay the ACWIA fee. But if it's a for-profit company, then they usually have to pay the 1,500 or maybe the 750 if it's a smaller company. But you have to check that supplement to make sure. This is how you look at for the different fees. I'm not going to go through all of them here, but I hope it was helpful for you to figure out how to even read these charts and try to figure out what the company has to pay. If you have any other questions, please visit manifestlaw.com and you can click on request a consultation. Our intake team is happy to connect with you quickly and get you scheduled for a consultation with a licensed immigration attorney as soon as possible. Thank you.